My brother invented a birthday party the night before my wedding to ruin it. My parents supported him and never came to my ceremony. But I got a restraining order that left them speechless. I'm 31 years old. I work in software sales, and I need to tell this story because what happened a few months ago basically destroyed any relationship I ever had with my parents and my younger brother. And the truth is, looking back, I should have seen it coming for years. But I guess you always want to believe that your family is going to be there for you in the important moments, you know? Well, turns out I was completely wrong about that. Let me start from the beginning so everything makes sense. My brother Wesley is 28 now. He's 3 years younger than me, and since we were kids, he's always had this problem of wanting to be the center of attention at all times. I don't know if it's because I was the first child and he had to share the spotlight or what, but he literally never got over that phase. When we were in high school, I played basketball, and he joined the team just to try to overshadow me, even though he didn't even like the sport. When I got accepted to the university, he made a huge drama because supposedly I was abandoning the family we lived like 40 minutes from campus. I mean, nothing. That kind of thing. Constantly. Throughout our entire lives. But the thing is that as we grew up, I kind of learned to keep my distance from Wesley because it was exhausting to be around him. Every achievement of mine became a competition for him. Every time I had something good happening in my life, he found a way to ruin it or make everything about him. And my parents, well, they always justified it. It was always, "That's just Wesley. You know how he is," or "He's your brother. You have to be more understanding." Or my favorite, "He's going through a tough time." As if Wesley hadn't been going through a tough time literally every day for the last 10 years. Like 2 years ago, more or less, I basically stopped talking to Wesley, except at family gatherings where I had no choice. He works as a freelancer doing I don't know what, graphic design or something, and he still lives with my parents at 28, which already tells you everything you need to know about his maturity level. My parents keep supporting him and justifying everything he does, and I simply got tired of trying to reason with any of them about it. Fast forward to about 8 months ago. I met Melissa like 4 years ago. We got engaged last year, and we started planning the wedding. Nothing too fancy, like 80 people, a nice hotel, about 8 hours from where we live, because Melissa has family there, and we got an incredible price. We notified everyone, almost a year in advance, sent the formal invitations 6 months before, everything very well organized. My parents said they were going to go, obviously, and they even offered to help with some expenses, although in the end we ended up paying for everything ourselves because we didn't want to owe them anything. Wesley also received his invitation. And when I talk about invitation, I mean we sent him one because we had to, not because we really wanted him there. But well, he's my brother, and my parents would have made a scene if we didn't invite him. He never responded to the RSVP, never said yes or no, just completely ignored all communication about it for months, typical of him, honestly. So we get to 3 weeks before the wedding. 3 weeks. And out of nowhere, Wesley decides he's going to throw a birthday party for himself. His birthday is in April. The wedding was planned for mid-June, so it wasn't even close to his actual birthday. And you know when he schedules this party? The night before my wedding. Literally the night before, in the city where we live, which is 8 hours from where the ceremony was going to be. When I found out, because my mom called to tell me like it was the most normal news in the world, I couldn't believe it. I told her, "Mom, seriously? Wesley is going to have a party the night before my wedding?" And she answered something like, "Oh, son, he wants to celebrate his birthday with the family and you guys are going to be traveling." I explained that his birthday had been 2 months ago, that everyone in the family already had plans to go to my wedding, that we had given almost a year's notice, and that this was obviously a petty move by Wesley to ruin my day. And you know what she said? "Don't be dramatic, Andrew. The world doesn't revolve around you. Your brother has the right to celebrate his birthday whenever he wants." I tried to talk to my dad, thinking maybe he would be more reasonable. Nothing. He came at me with the same thing, that I was being selfish, that it was just a party, that why couldn't we both have our events? I said, "Dad, literally all the people Wesley invited to his party already have plane tickets bought to go to my wedding. How do you not see that this is completely intentional?" He hung up on me. literally hung up the phone in my face. I called Wesley directly, something I hadn't done in months, and asked him what the hell he was doing. He laughed. That laugh I'd known since we were kids. That laugh that means he's enjoying making me feel bad. He told me, "It's my birthday. I can celebrate it whenever I want. It's not my fault you planned your wedding at an inconvenient time." Inconvenient. As if 3 weeks' notice for a birthday party that wasn't even on his birthday was more legitimate than a wedding planned a year in advance. I swear I tried to stay calm. I told him, "Look, Wesley, you're clearly doing this to sabotage my wedding. We all know it. Why don't you just admit you're upset because for once in your life you're not going to be the center of attention?" He said something like, "Wow, how self-centered you are. Everything has to be about you," and blocked me. He blocked me when he was the one who basically declared war. Melissa was furious, obviously. She had always been very patient with all the dysfunctional dynamics of my family, but this was too much even for her. She told me, "Look, your parents and Wesley are going to have to decide what's more important to them, and we're going to move forward with our wedding no matter what." And she was right, but it still hurt, you know? Because deep down, even though I already knew what my family was like, part of me still hoped they would do the right thing. 2 weeks before the wedding, my mom called to tell me that they had decided to go to Wesley's party instead of my wedding. Just like that, casual, as if she was telling me they were going to be 10 minutes late or something. I was speechless on the phone for like a full minute. When I could finally speak, all I managed to say was, "Are you kidding?" And she told me no, that they had thought a lot about this. 2 weeks. They had thought for 2 weeks. How deep. And that they felt Wesley needed family support at this time because he had felt very excluded lately. Excluded. The guy who spent his life trying to ruin every good thing that happened to me suddenly was the victim who needed support. I asked if she realized what she was doing, that this was my wedding, which is supposed to be one of the most important days in a person's life, and that she was choosing a made-up birthday party over that. She said she was sorry, but they had already made the decision, and that she hoped I would understand someday. I hung up and I think I sat on the couch for like 2 hours without moving a muscle. Melissa found me there and just sat with me. Didn't say anything, just was there. The next few days were chaos. I started getting messages from cousins, uncles, family, friends, everyone asking what was up with Wesley and the party. Turns out he had sent last-minute invitations to basically everyone who was going to my wedding, trying to get people to cancel their plans. But here's the thing Wesley didn't calculate. No one else in the family is as toxic as him and my parents. Everyone. And when I say everyone, I mean literally every person who received that invitation, called me, or messaged me saying how ridiculous, that they were obviously going to go to my wedding as planned, and that they couldn't believe Wesley's audacity. My cousin Daniel, who's like my best friend since forever, called me specifically to tell me he had spoken with my parents trying to make them see reason, and that they had told him I was a bad son for not supporting my brother. Daniel told them they were completely crazy and that they were going to regret this decision. My dad told him to mind his own business. The entire family was watching the disaster unfold in real time. The week of the wedding arrived and I was already like on autopilot, trying not to think about my parents, not to think about Wesley, just focusing on everything going well for Melissa and me. We went to the hotel where the ceremony was going to be 2 days before, and honestly, those 2 days were amazing. All of Melissa's family was there. My cousins and uncles were arriving. There were like 75 people who had made the 8-hour trip to be there with us, and the energy was beautiful. Nobody mentioned my parents or Wesley. Everyone was just excited and happy for us. The night before the wedding, which was when Wesley's party was supposed to be, Daniel sent me a message with a photo. It was of Wesley's party. There were like 7 people there, including my parents, and everyone looked miserable. My mom was sitting in a corner with the face of someone who had just realized she had made the biggest mistake of her life. Wesley was trying to look happy, but you could tell he was furious because his plan to ruin my wedding had failed spectacularly. Daniel told me that several of my uncles had been calling my parents all day, trying to convince them to drive to the wedding, that they were still in time, but they refused because supposedly they had already given their word to Wesley. The wedding day was perfect. And I'm not exaggerating, it was literally perfect. Melissa looked incredible. The ceremony was emotional. The reception was full of people who really loved us and wanted to be there. My Uncle Roberto walked me down the aisle because my parents obviously weren't there, and honestly, it was better that way because he had always been more like a father to me anyway. We danced, we ate, we laughed. It was everything we had dreamed of. At no point did I feel like something was missing, because the important people were all there. And then, just when we were cutting the cake, my phone started ringing. It was my mom. I ignored it. She kept calling. I ignored her again. She called like 5 times in a row until I finally asked Daniel to answer and tell her I was busy, at my wedding. Daniel answered and put it on speaker because he said I needed to hear this. My mom was crying, saying that the whole family had abandoned them, that nobody had gone to Wesley's party except like 5 people, that everyone was blaming them for missing my wedding, and that I needed to talk to everyone and tell them to stop harassing them. Daniel told her that maybe they should have thought about that before choosing a made-up party over their son's wedding, and hung up. I didn't let that ruin my night. We kept celebrating until 3 in the morning, and it was incredible. But the next day, when we were having the post-wedding brunch with all the guests who had stayed, I started receiving messages from various family members telling me that my parents and Wesley were sending emails to everyone, saying that I had manipulated the entire family to isolate them, that I was a terrible son, that Wesley had only wanted to have a special moment, and I had ruined it out of jealousy. It was surreal, honestly. They were trying to completely rewrite what had happened. I decided that was enough. I took like 2 hours and wrote a detailed email to the whole family, explaining exactly everything that had happened since Wesley had announced his party. I included dates, screenshots of conversations, everything. I didn't exaggerate anything, didn't add unnecessary drama, just laid out the facts as they had occurred. I ended the email saying I wasn't asking anyone to take a side, just that they know the complete truth before judging the situation, and that personally, I needed space from my parents and Wesley for an indefinite time. The responses started coming in within hours. My uncles, my cousins, even some family friends who had been invited to both events. Everyone said basically the same thing. That what my parents and Wesley had done was unforgivable, that they were cutting off communication with them until they apologized appropriately, and that they supported me completely. My Aunt Carmen, who had always been super close to my mom, sent her a message saying she couldn't believe what she had done and didn't want to talk to her again until she accepted responsibility for her actions. I thought that would calm everything down, that my parents would realize the magnitude of what they had done and maybe try to fix it. But no. Instead, they started sending even more aggressive emails, now accusing me of destroying the family, of turning everyone against them, of being a narcissistic manipulator. Wesley sent a particularly nasty email saying I had always been a terrible brother, that I had never supported him in anything, and that my whole life I had tried to overshadow his achievements. What achievements? I wanted to ask him, living with your parents at 28? Melissa and I went back home after spending a few more days at the hotel, thinking we were going to be able to rest and process everything. We had planned to go on our honeymoon a month after the wedding because with work, we hadn't been able to get immediate time off, so we basically went back to our normal routine. Or we tried to. About 2 weeks after the wedding, I was on a call with the whole extended family, like a Zoom conference that my cousin had organized to see how I was doing, and to discuss what to do about the situation with my parents. And in the middle of that call, someone added my parents and Wesley without telling anyone. I don't know who it was, we still don't know, but suddenly there they were on the screen. My dad started yelling immediately, saying we were all traitors. How dare we judge them? My mom was crying again, saying I had broken her heart, that she never thought her oldest son would be capable of something like this. And Wesley, that asshole, had a smile on his face. A smile. As if this was fun for him. As if seeing the whole family destroyed was exactly what he wanted. My uncle Roberto, who's a lawyer and is generally the calmest of everyone, told them they needed to seek therapy, that their behavior was unacceptable, and that until they accepted responsibility and genuinely apologized, nobody in the family wanted to have contact with them. My dad told him to go to hell. And Wesley started laughing. That's when I exploded. I told them exactly what I thought of them, no filters. I told them they had chosen to protect Wesley's fragile ego over being present on one of the most important days of my life, that they had lied about me to the whole family, that they had tried to manipulate everyone to turn against me, and that they had basically destroyed any chance of having a relationship with me or my future children. My mom said something like, "Your future children are my grandchildren. You can't keep them away from me." And I told her, "Watch me." I left the call and started shaking. Melissa hugged me and let me vent. I cried like I hadn't cried since I was a kid, and I realized I was never going to have the family I had always wanted. That night I slept like 3 hours, waking up every so often with this knot in my stomach. I thought that was going to be the end point, that after that horrible call we would all move on with our lives and that's it. But no, because my parents and Wesley apparently decided there hadn't been enough drama. Like 2 weeks after that call, on a normal Tuesday at 4 in the morning, like 4 in the morning, Melissa and I woke up to banging on the door. Loud, aggressive, like someone was trying to knock it down. I got up confused and scared, and when I looked out the window, I saw my parents' car parked in the driveway. I couldn't believe it. I went downstairs and yelled through the closed door asking what they wanted, and my dad started yelling at me to open the door, that we had to talk now. I told him it was 4 in the morning, to leave or I was going to call the police. Wesley yelled something like, "Open the damn door, Andrew," and started ringing the doorbell repeatedly like a 5-year-old throwing a tantrum. Melissa came down and told me to call the police right away. I dialed 911 while my parents and Wesley kept yelling and banging when I told the operator that my family was on my property at 4 in the morning, refusing to leave and causing a disturbance. They asked if I felt threatened. And the truth is I did, because I didn't know what they were capable of at that point. I said yes, and they told me a patrol was on the way. In the 10 minutes it took for the police to arrive, my neighbors started coming out to see what was happening. This was mortifying, because I live in a quiet neighborhood, and my family had never caused problems. When the officers arrived, my parents immediately changed their tone. Suddenly they were the victims, telling the police they just wanted to talk to their son, that I had pushed them away from the family, that they weren't doing anything wrong. The officers asked them why they were there at 4 in the morning, and my mom said something like, "Because he won't answer our calls." One of the officers asked me to come out and explain the situation. I told them briefly about the wedding, about the constant harassment, showed them some of the emails they had been sending. The officer told my parents and Wesley they had to leave immediately or they were going to be arrested for trespassing. My dad started arguing, saying he had raised me and had the right to talk to me. And the officer told him no, that I was an adult, living in my own house, and had the right to decide who could be on my property. They left, finally, but not before Wesley yelled at me that I was going to regret this. Direct threat, in front of the cops. One of them warned him to calm his tone, or they were going to arrest him right there. They got in their car and left, and I stood there in my driveway, at 4:30 in the morning, with 2 police officers and several neighbors watching, feeling like my life had become an episode of a reality show. The next day, I called a lawyer, a friend of a friend who specializes in family law and restraining orders. I explained the whole situation, showed him the emails, told him about the previous dawn. He told me I had a solid case for a restraining order against all 3, and that we should proceed as soon as possible because the harassment pattern was escalating. We filled out all the papers that same week. It was surreal having to formally document everything, having to write on legal forms, things like, "The defendants showed up at my property at 4 a.m., causing a disturbance about my own parents." But the lawyer told me I was doing the right thing, that protecting myself and Melissa was the priority. The hearing was like 2 weeks later. My parents and Wesley showed up with their own lawyer, one who was clearly charging them a lot because according to my lawyer, he was from an expensive firm. In court, they tried to make it look like I was the problem, that they just wanted to reconcile, and I was being immature. But when the judge reviewed all the emails, the police reports from that dawn, and the written testimonies from various family members about the behavior pattern, their narrative fell apart, completely. The judge asked my parents directly why they had chosen not to attend my wedding, and my mom tried to explain about Wesley and his need for support, but the more she talked, the worse it sounded. The judge asked Wesley why he had scheduled his party specifically the night before my wedding, and Wesley didn't have a coherent answer, He just started stammering something about it being his right to celebrate his birthday whenever he wanted. The judge didn't look impressed. They granted me the restraining order. 2 years, no contact of any kind. My parents and Wesley can't come near me, Melissa, or our house within a 150-meter radius. They can't contact us by phone, email, social media, nothing. If they do, they can be arrested. When the judge gave his decision, my mom started crying hysterically, and my dad looked like he had aged 10 years in that moment. Wesley just looked furious. I left that court feeling relieved, but also empty, because even though I had won, I had also definitively lost my family of origin. Melissa and I finally went on our honeymoon last week, 3 months after the wedding. We went to Greece, which was something we had been planning since before all this disaster. It was incredible to be able to completely disconnect, to be in a place where nobody knew anything about our situation, where we were just two people in love enjoying their trip. For the first time in months, I could breathe without feeling that constant weight on my chest. While we were there, my cousin Daniel sent me a message telling me that my parents had tried to contact several family members, asking how they could fix this, but that nobody was answering them because everyone was fed up with the drama. Apparently, Wesley lost several of his freelance friends because he started becoming toxic with them too, blaming them for not having gone to his party. Part of me feels sorry when I hear those things, but most of me is just tired. Now we're back home, resuming normal life, and honestly, I'm at peace with everything. The family I chose, the cousins, uncles, friends who were there when it really mattered, that's my real family. Melissa and I are planning maybe to move next year, get a bigger house, start thinking about having kids. And yeah, it's weird to think that my parents are never going to meet their grandchildren, but they made that decision when they chose a made-up party over my wedding. Last week, I was organizing some wedding photos to finally put them in albums, and Melissa asked me if I regretted how I handled everything. I told her no, that the only thing I regret is having waited so long to set boundaries. I should have done it years ago, when Wesley started with his games and my parents started allowing it. Maybe things wouldn't have escalated so much if I had been firmer from the beginning. I guess the lesson here, if there is one, is that family doesn't mean you have to put up with abuse or manipulation, and that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you most are the ones who can hurt you the most. But I also learned that there are good people out there, people who are going to be there for you when it really matters, and that one person who genuinely cares about you is worth more than 100 family members who are only there out of obligation. I still have difficult days. Days where I wonder if I did the right thing, if I was too harsh, if I should have tried more. But then I remember that 4 a.m. call. I remember all those poisonous emails. I remember Wesley's face smiling in that video call while everything fell apart. And I know I did exactly what I had to do. Because at the end of the day, I didn't destroy this family. They did, when they decided Wesley's ego was more important than being present at my wedding. Melissa is in the kitchen making coffee. I can hear her singing something by Taylor Swift quietly, and in a couple hours, we're going to go have dinner with Daniel and his girlfriend. Life goes on, and it's okay. Better than okay, honestly. And if my parents and Wesley ever manage to understand what they did and want to fix it for real, not with excuses and manipulation but with genuine apologies and real change, maybe in 2 years when the restraining order expires we can talk. But honestly, I'm not holding my breath waiting for that to happen.